In disc golf, the backhand throw is the king. It's the most popular throw, and it generally ends up with the most power and the most accuracy. Here are our 5 tips for improving your backhand. There are a lot of grips that work well for throwing a backhand, but there are even more that don't. There are 2 things to look for in a good backhand grip, and they are firmness and nose down. For the firmness, you want it to be about like a firm handshake. You want to be holding onto the disc pretty tightly because you want to hold onto it for as long as possible. The main thing that's powering the throw is your arm extending, and so the longer that you can hold onto the disc, the more power you're going to get out of your arm extending, and that's going to end up with more spin and more power on the shot. If you're struggling with timing your release with a firmer grip, that's probably a result of grounding, and that's something we'll go into a little bit later. But if you're pulling the disc on a straight line to the release point, your grip is not going to be strong enough to pull it offline, so you can hold on to it pretty much as tightly as you want to, and the disc is going to pop out in the direction that you were pulling it. The second thing is nose down. A good way to find your grip is to line up the disc with the bottom middle of your hand and in between your pointer and your middle fingers, and then wrap all of your fingers around, and wherever they come to rest on the disc, that's most likely the most comfortable grip for you. It's important that this little fleshy part at the base of your pointer finger is on top of the disc. That ends up making the disc fly a lot more nose down, and that's going to help you with a lot more distance. When you're trying to throw for distance, it can be easy to try and throw as hard as you can or move as fast as you can, but focusing on balance is almost always going to end up in more control and more power. My number 1 tip for balance is to try and shift your weight over your toes. If you lean forward just a little bit, that's going to make you a lot more balanced, and it's going to let you have a lot more range of motion in your hips, in your core, and in everything. Now, the one spot where this doesn't exactly apply is as you're rotating. It's important to offset your plant foot to the left so you could rotate over your heel rather than rotating over your toe, and that's going to end up with more power. But until then, you want to be kind of leaned over your toes so that you can get some good push off of your back leg and end up with more power. Reaching back is an incredibly important part of the backhand throw, but there are a lot of common mistakes that people make when trying to reach back. The first is timing. I always teach to time your reach back so it peaks when your front foot touches the ground. That's so the disc and your foot are kind of offset and you can stay balanced while you're reaching back. Because if you're not balanced, the second thing happens a lot, and that's overextending. You don't need to reach back very far. Reaching back is really just trying to set your shoulder up on the right angle, so you don't have to turn all the way away from the target and reach the disc as far back as you can. Just a little bit of turn and then extending the disc away from your chest is a good place to start for reaching back. And the third is reaching straight back. It's important to reach away from your chest as you reach back, because you see a lot of people who will reach across their body or they'll try and keep the disc tucked in tight, and that ends up not letting the disc get into the right position to throw powerfully. So it's a good mental note to try and think of the whole disc as being able to see the target from the peak of the reach back. So we just talked about reaching away from the chest so the whole disc can see the target. From that reach back, the disc should be able to go mostly straight forward to the release point. It's very common for people to reach across their bodies and then spin rather than pull the disc straight, and that's when the disc is on a curved line. Now, when the disc is being pulled on a curved line, if your hands are wet, then the disc might slip out early, or if you hold the disc too tightly, then the disc might slip out late. So it's important to try and pull the disc straight so that no matter how hard you're holding the disc, it's going to release going straight at the target. Number 1 thing to focus on there is the power pocket. Try and get your hand on the outside of the disc and make sure your elbow is up so that you can get the disc into this position from your reach back, and then from here, the disc will extend out to the release and you'll see a lot more distance. The disc golf backhand is one of the most unique motions in all of sports, so it's really important to practice because it's not going to feel like anything you've ever done. My favorite thing to do to practice is to go to a wide open field and throw all of my discs from one end to the other and then go pick them up and throw them back. That's going to get a lot more reps in compared to playing around on the course, and it's going to let me sort of have room to fail and try new things, and that's the fastest way, I think, to get better. It's also a good opportunity to film yourself, and you can see what you're doing wrong because lots of times you can't feel it, and it's a lot easier to see it on film. So those are our 5 tips to improve your backhand. Did we cover everything? Do you have any tips that you'd like to add? Let us know down in the comments, and make sure you subscribe for more content here at Dynamic Discs.